Good morning.
Morning. Sorry, my last class went over. I'm trying to open up the PowerPoint.
I was having trouble opening it.
The PowerPoint? I haven't.
Yeah.
The one I emailed yesterday?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me. Okay. It should have already emailed to you. I'll try to send it again because I'm going to open it up on the screen. Can you see? Can you see this?
Yeah.
Except I lost my whoopsie. Hold on. Oh, hang on. Okay, there you guys are. Let me get everybody in, and then let me do my attendance, and then I can figure out how to get this open.
No! Out the basket, I said.
Hang on. Not starting just yet. Okay, let me just put everybody in. Stephanie, Michaela, Lee, Nissa, Sean, Dog, Berman, Morris, Hines, Megan Hines, Wingate, Jenna Robinson, Deal. Trying to check off your names as you get in, so it's just gonna take me a second. Marlo, Keller, Burley, Madison, I got you. Tia, there you are, Ireland. How you feeling?
Huh? Like garbage.
Oh, goodness. Well, do the best you can to stay on. If you have to pop off, just let me know.
Yeah, I feel so bad because I can't sleep for more than like 3 hours at a time. And I didn't fall asleep after one of my naps last night until like 6:30 in the morning, and I slept completely through Niemer's lecture.
Well, I haven't uploaded my lectures yet. I'm hoping to do that tonight. I was having computer issues. So I'll try and get those uploaded. So if you have to bop off, you can replay it.
Okay.
Because I want you to feel okay.
I'm working on it.
I know, lots of rest. There's Alonza.
Been drinking teas and Gatorades.
Tea and Gatorade, that's perfect. Lots of Gatorade. Lots of Gatorade. Okay, it says I have 24 in here. Is Sinstena in here? I have everybody unmuted for the moment. I'm missing Sinstena.
Yeah, I don't think she's here.
Okay, it's weird. Oh, okay, that's because I see 24, but that includes me, so it means I'm just missing. Is Ariel in here? Gaskell?
Yeah, it looks like it.
Okay, I can, oh, she's chatting.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Okay, thank you. Senstina, if you're here but not showing up, can you type here in the chat?
Okay,
And I
don't
see Eva,
on
okay. Okay, Senstina, I'll give you time to,
So Rachel,
Okay.
I saw it went to my junk folder on my email.
oh, you found my PowerPoint?
No, the link for the Zoom. It went to my junk folder.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I'll tell her. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, who on here, could everyone open the PowerPoint yesterday when I emailed it?
I wasn't able to.
Okay, I'm gonna try something. It says I can add a file on here, so I'm gonna try to send it to you this way.
I was gonna tell you guys, sometimes like it doesn't come through on my Gmail or it goes somewhere else on my Gmail, but if you go on TeacherEase and hit email logs, then your guys' emails are coming through there with the links and stuff. You just have to copy and paste it rather than just clicking on it.
Okay. Yes.
So if anyone's not getting it or can't find it, try looking there.
Okay, I'm gonna try that.
I just put the link in the chat, so it should show up in the chat screen that it's open. So you might be able to open it through the chat and then save it like to your desktop or save it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Might work. Hang on, I'm getting a message. Let me. Okay. Okay. All right. Since then I got you. Okay. Okay. Are we okay to get started? I'm going to try to. Why is it doing this screen? Let me. I don't, this. Okay, I didn't close it. If I do. Oh, so you can all see that now?
Yeah.
Yep.
You can all see. Okay. Trying to get to where I left off. Okay. Do you see when whoop? You can all see that?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about where I left off yesterday, talking about the differences in hair or their fur. So the purpose is really, it helps maintain body temperature. It can also give them camouflage protection. Now, obviously, they don't disappear. You can see them. Okay, I've muted everyone just for the moment. If you have a question, obviously, you can hit it in the chat. But basically, they can change the position of their hair. So obviously, you know, when a cat arches or if your dog gets excited and kind of, they call it their hackles, where the hair on their back will go up. It's designed to make them look more menacing. And basically make them seem bigger than they are or seem more muscular or not. So basically, if we raise the hair, it's a defense mechanism. So not necessarily camouflage that, you know, they disappear, but it'll basically make them seem more menacing. What you're gonna look at here is this is the structure of the follicle. This section here is the epidermis. Now you can see that the follicle extends down into the dermis, okay? There's a muscle right here that's important. This is called the erector pili muscle. This would be part of a structure you may have to identify. What this does, this is a smooth muscle. So this muscle is under autonomic nervous system. If they get scared, what will happen is this muscle will constrict, and that's an automatic response, and it will change the position of the hair. So it can raise it when they're excited, it will lower when they're relaxed, but it's the erector pili, and think about erecting the hair. So it literally pulls the follicle up or down so that it can change its position in the skin. So that is the job of that follicle. What I'm going now, I'm going to explain some of this in the further slides, but this right here is a sebaceous gland. If the muscle pulls the hair, sometimes it will put pressure on this gland and they will squirt out this, what's called sebum, which is an oily substance. So sometimes a dog that's very nervous, or they do this a lot, sometimes they'll get a little oily if they if their hair is always going up and sometimes it pushes a little more sebum on that area, sometimes you will have some more secretions there. So when this muscle constricts, it'll push here and push more oil or sebum onto the skin. You can see right here, there is a pore, and that's where the oil, the sebum comes out, and it puts a little on here. You can see this is a complex, complex gland because it has more than one duct. So you can see that here. You have the root itself. You have the hair bulb follicle where the hair grows from, okay? Now, I'm not so much interested that you know the composition of a hair. It does have a medulla, a cortex, or the medulla here, whoops, sorry, cortex. You've got the medulla itself, the cortex is around it. So you can see all these cells will actually build that hair itself. So you don't need to really know the three parts. If you cut a hair in half and you look down inside the hair root itself, you can see you've got the medulla. This is showing you the cortex. You see all the cells, and this is the connective tissue on the outside. So it has an internal root sheath and an outer epithelial layer to the hair itself. Okay, you do not have to label this picture. Okay. Now, what I do want you to know is that animals will have multiple hairs come out of a single pore, which is called a compound follicle. So they can, it says 3 compound follicles group to emerge from the same fold. So here we have a follicle, and then we have the hair shafts that are coming out. You can see the stratum corneum. These flakes are the skin folds, and you can see how they're flaking off, but this is a compound follicle. Most of the follicles in dogs are compound, and in cats are compound follicles, okay? So you're gonna have more hairs that come out of one follicle. What actually happens is you have epithelial cells here at the bottom that are going to start to grow, push that hair out. They're going to lose that hair, and then it's going to regrow. So now we have 2 types of breeds. You have shedding breeds. this is going to be their growth cycle. Or you're going to have like poodles, anything that's mixed with a poodle, or let's like Portuguese water dogs. There are breeds like Shih Tzu. They have what's a continuous growth hair coat. Now they have to be groomed, so they don't necessarily lose the hair. Theirs would continue to grow from the one follicle. If they were to lose that hair, they can regrow it, but that's why they have to be groomed. And they're basically having to trim that to keep it short. But like if you have a Labrador, if you have a German Shepherd, or even my boxer, they will shed their hair. So it comes out like this, and then basically another hair is going to regrow. Now, how they get the color, remember, color for skin, color for hair comes from melanin. Melanin is what gives pigment. So a melanocyte gives up its melanin granules and gives a basically pigment. So if you have a black lab, they are going to give the majority of their pigment to the hair. If you have a white dog, those melanin cells basically do not give up their granules and the hair is white. So, you know, obviously you're going to have brown or tan in between, but on the extremes, a white dog and a black dog, this dog's hair, the melanin granules are picked up by the hair strand, and that's what gives its pigment, okay? So in the cells, there is melanin in that follicle, and it's transferred to the hair strand. So anytime I ask you about pigment, I'm always talking about melanin, and the granules are what gives the pigment. A thing to notice here is melanin decreases with age, okay? Melanin granules, obviously when you start to get gray hairs, a gray hair is obviously, that hair is growing and the melanin production is decreased. That happens with age, but we all know people that get prematurely gray. I had a girl in my 2nd grade class, and she had black hair and gray hair, and she was in 2nd grade. Now, so you can always have a genetic issue with the melanin, but obviously we all know when a dog starts to get older, sometimes they get the gray on the muzzle and they start to get gray, and that's because the melanin production is decreasing as they get older. Okay. This next slide is important. Hang on, I was getting a message. Okay, hold on. Okay, sorry, it wasn't about class. So you have 3 types of hairs that you need to know, okay? Primary hairs are called guard hairs. These are typically straighter. They can have an arch, but they're thicker and they're a little bit longer than secondary hairs. If you have a dog, even on a cat, sometimes down their back, you will see that the hair is a little bit shinier, a little bit smoother. These are typically the hairs that will raise because they're on guard. So typically down the back of the neck, down the back, there's going to be what are called the guard hairs, and they're a little bit longer, and they are the dominant hair in the follicle. The secondary hairs are considered, ones here, are softer and shorter. This would be the undercoat. So if you want to put a note somewhere where you're taking notes, your secondary hair is your undercoat. So if you have like a German Shepherd or a Husky right now, and then they're starting to shed, and you get those really soft, they look like tumbleweeds in your living room, or you sometimes pluck out these little chunks of fur. Those are actually your secondary hairs that are shedding, and that's what you're seeing. And they're typically softer. That's why they have that fuzzier, like soft appearance. Anytime I see a tactile hair, which I want you to know as whiskers. A whisker is a tactile, and that's because tactile is touch. So the whiskers, they have the primary whiskers obviously on their face. But if you look at a cat, sometimes you can't see them depending on what kind of cat. You'll see little hairs that are actually, they're a little more coarse. You can find these throughout the body. They are obviously primarily on the face, but like near the back legs, somewhere near the front legs, you might see and notice there's a different tactile hair. But these are probes and feelers. So these are typically found on the face, but they are also found to some degree within the body. And again, as they walk by or something brushes by, they obviously can feel that, okay? So they can feel and sense things that are nearby during the, during their movement while they walk around. So I do want you to be able to tell me the job of the 3 types of hair, if it's primary, secondary, or tactile. So if you have any questions, just pop in. I see a question. Okay. Sorry. Do all types of breeds of dogs have all 3? Yes, they do. So all dogs have these 3 types. It just depends. Let me give you an example. You guys do breeds next term, but if you've ever seen a Chesapeake Bay Retriever, it's like a chocolate lab. They're technically a different, they look very similar, but down their back, they have very thick, wavy guard hairs. Their coat is actually water repellent. Newfoundland is another. So sometimes the water breeds, if they're a water breed like a Labrador, a Newfoundland, a Chesapeake Bay Retriever, you'll notice down on the outside of their coat, especially down their back, they have more of these primary guard hairs, and they're somewhat water repellent. If you ever have to give them a bath, it's kind of a pain in the butt because you're literally like pouring water on them, and some of it is just like, you'll eventually get them wet, but it's just that some dogs, if they have any swimming or hunting of ducks in their lineage, they're going to have a thicker coat, that thicker guard hair coat. So hopefully the Ava or Tia, that answered your question. Okay. Now back to this, sorry, let me move this. I don't know if this is in your way or not. Okay, back to the erector pili muscle. The big thing too I want you to know is it is a smooth muscle. If you remember when I talked about muscles briefly, you do not have control of your smooth muscle. A smooth muscle is under what's called autonomic control. It means it happens automatically. It is attached to every follicle. And when it means innervated, it means the nerve is connected to that. If it contracts, if that muscle right here shortens during contraction, it's going to pull the hair. So again, when usually sympathetic stimulation is your fight and flight. If you're scared, or if anyone says, wow, the hairs on the back of my neck just went up, it happens to us too. If you feel like, if you look at your arm when you get nervous and your little hairs pop up, it's basically the erector pili muscle. Because of your nervous system being scared, they all pop up. Okay, so they all will raise. When you calm down, or when the animal calms down, that's all gonna, that muscle will relax and it will go back. So the job of the erector pili is to raise the hair. That's the job. And I want you to know, if I ask you, which whenever I say that, that means I'm probably gonna ask you, how does the hair raise? It is under autonomic control, smooth muscle. You do not have conscious control over it. It happens automatically during stress. So I'm gonna actually try to type that. And NS stands for nervous system. So the autonomic nervous systems, cannot type. Okay, so it is automatic control. Okay, now we have to talk about glands that we find in the skin. So there's different types of glands. And remember, a gland is manufacturing a secretion. Something is coming out of the gland. Okay, these glands are all exocrine. It means an exocrine gland has a duct. So whatever, all 4 of these glands have like a duct or a tube where the secretion is going to leave the gland and be deposited somewhere. Okay, so it's going to squirt out from the gland and it's going to squirt out onto a surface of something. Okay, so I'm going to talk about all these different glands. Okay, the first one is sebaceous glands. The sebaceous gland is, remember, this is the epidermis. All this is the dermis. So if you see, this gland is in the dermis. It can be simple or complex. I think I said compound and I meant to say complex. I'm sorry. So this is a complex gland because you can see it has multiple ducts. If it only had one, it would be simple. But I want you to know a sebaceous gland produces sebum. In sheep, it actually produces lanolin. If you've heard of lanolin, it's what gives the wool that kind of softness. You can actually strip lanolin and put it into like a lotion. So you can basically kind of harvest lanolin and it's actually very smooth, supple substance. But it produces sebum and it produces produces lanolin. Lanolin would be in sheep, okay? But in a dog and a cat, it primarily produces sebum. And what it does is it empties some of the sebum onto the follicle. And so as the hair grows, it's going to be coated in that sebum. Or some of it will actually come out here and go onto the surface of the skin. Okay, so if it comes out here, it goes right on the surface of the skin. This happens in the lip area, the labia, which are the lips, and then onto the vulva, the penis and the prepuce. So all of those areas produce, they have a secretion around the anus, eyelid. Now the ear canal. This is important because sometimes you're going to have dogs come in. My friend had a golden. She would bring it into the clinic, and you know, golden retrievers sometimes have a little extra fur around their ear, like little tufts of fur. It was always very oily. Okay, the dog did not have an ear infection. It just, that dog produced a little more sebum and that hair would get kind of oily right there. But people that have oily hair or dry hair, obviously people that have oily hair or oily skin produce more sebum. So sometimes it's genetic. Sometimes if you have an animal under stress and that hair follicle is always standing up, they're going to squirt out more sebum. So hopefully that makes sense. I'm going to type in a condition here. If I can get my arrow. So sometimes the animals, I just typed it in the chat, get something called seborrheic dermatitis, or they suffer from something called seborrhea. If you have learned in terminology, I don't know if you've covered it yet, RHEA means overproduction, like diarrhea is obviously an overproduction of stool, soft stool, but anytime you have rhea on the end, it's an overproduction. So if an animal is suffering from seborrhea, it means sometimes these dogs come in and you pet them and your hand is like coated, like the back, they always feel greasy. What happens is if they overproduce this sebum, actually, let me go on to the next slide because it talks about it. It's an oily substance and it's produced by the gland. Sometimes they have too much compression on that gland and it's causing it to squirt out more sebum. Okay. And basically what it's supposed to do, it's supposed to keep moisture in the skin. That's a normal production. It's also supposed to keep the skin soft and the hair very soft and pliable and waterproof. It gives an extra waterproof coating and it reduces skin infection. So if there's an oily barrier on your skin, hopefully bacteria and things cannot penetrate the skin and it keeps it from, you know, it's like a barrier. But like I just explained, if you have a dog that's producing too much, it can actually trap too much like debris and bacteria. And sometimes they get these skin infections. They get bumps, and that's when we call it seborrheic dermatitis, because it causes an inflammation of the skin and they usually get a secondary infection. The way we treat that is they do make anti-seborrhea shampoos. So they have shampoos that are special that it will break down that oily substance and it will actually kind of remove the seborrhea or remove the secretion and keep their skin very clean. So sometimes those dogs have to come in and have baths, a special medicated shampoo. This one, you know, you could try to get stuff at the pet store, but usually these dogs came in for what we call a medicated bath. And we had access to special shampoos that they couldn't get at the pet store and that would treat that dermatitis. And usually that's genetic. I mean, some people have oily hair, some people have dry hair. There's oily shampoo, there's dry shampoo. Same thing in dogs and cats. I probably see seborrhea more in dogs than you do in cats. So it's kind of more of a dog issue, I would say. But so be able to tell me what sebum does, what's the job of it. It's obviously, it keeps moisture in the skin and it's supposed to give moisture to the hair follicle. Oh. Okay, what happened? Hang on, I'm going to try to open it up. I do not know why my PowerPoint just what's happening? Okay, let me try this. Can you see the PowerPoint anymore?
Yeah, it's just not the full screen.
If I do, can you see that?
Yeah.
Oh, hang on, I'm trying to, sorry, I don't know, my computer just went bonkers for no reason. Let me try to, does that help? Can you guys see the whole slide?
We can see the whole slide and the next slide.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have two different screens going. I have my big screen and my laptop, so I just didn't know which view you had. Okay, I'm going to continue. I apologize that that went bonkers for a minute. Okay. So the sweat glands, you don't need to know the sudoriferous glands, just know them as the sweat glands. Sweat is obviously watery. It should be very clear and transparent. The job of sweating is to obviously cool the body through evaporation. they are found all over the entire body, although they do not sweat through each one. I do want you to know the horse is the only one that will profusely sweat. Like you can touch a horse and they will actually be, they will feel sweaty. Okay. So they're the only ones that sweat. Now, apocrine glands are basically, here we go. So eccrine glands, if you look at the one here, they basically release their sweat through a sweat pore. Apocrine glands release their sweat into the follicle, and then it comes out through the fur. Okay, but the main thing I want you to know about sweat is that it goes through the whole, mostly they go through their paws. Dogs and cats sweat through their paws. The horse will actually sweat on the surface of their body. So a horse will actually feel sweaty. Now, animals, dogs and cats, they have a tail gland. It's usually somewhere mid-tail, okay, and it's on the dorsal aspect, so it's on the top. Sorry, I can't see my, I just can't see my face anymore. Hang on. Oh. You guys can still see me.
Yeah.
Okay, I just can't see myself. Okay, never mind. Okay, the tail gland is going to have an oval, it's kind of at the base. It's going to be up closer, somewhere mid to closer to their rump area. Usually the hair over this gland is a little bit more coarse and oily because it does have a secretion. It's mostly a marking technique. If you've ever seen an animal like a dog or a cat and they rub their butt up against something, it's a marking technique. They can also smell there. I will say some older dogs, sometimes you'll notice the skin is a little more scaly or oily in this area. Some you won't even notice it. So it's not like it's like, here it is. It's basically going to basically be in a different area. You won't always notice it, but it is a marking technique. So this is probably the main reason you guys all came to tech school, was to learn about the anal sacs. Not fun. The anal glands, this is, let's see. Okay, there we go. Couldn't find the video panel. Okay, basically the anal glands are, whoops. I want you to think of the anus like a clock. Okay, this is gonna be weird. I usually draw this on the board. I might be able to. So, I don't know if you can see that. Okay, if this is the rectal area, this is the anus, the glands are in the muscles around the anus, and they're usually around 4 to 5, 7 to 8, if you looked at a clock. So they're ventral, and they are embedded in the muscles near around the rectum. Okay, so if I ask you the position of the anal glands referring to a clock, you would tell me like 4 and 8 or 5 and 7. Okay. Now, these have a very malodorous or bad secretion. If you've worked in a practice or your own dog has expressed their anal glands by accident, it is very different smelling than their stool. Okay, it has a very pungent smell. Kind of stays with you, unfortunately. It is a sebaceous and an apocrine gland, but they're like a musk or marking gland. When an animal defecates, okay, when the stool comes out the rectum, those muscles squeeze to defecate. The muscles should squeeze these glands, and then as they defecate, the anal gland material coats the stool, and it's a marking technique, okay? So it is supposed to express as they defecate. The other thing that sometimes happens is if an animal is scared, okay, oops, this is upside down, I apologize. If an animal's scared and they clench their butt, sometimes they clench so strong that they'll squeeze those glands out and accidentally express themselves. Let me give you an example. We had a dog that used to come for chemotherapy once a week when I was in oncology, and it was a very nervous shepherd mix. And he would walk in, we haven't even touched him yet. Like, we walked him to the back, we were getting ready to do his TPR and draw blood, and you could just smell him. And I think the fact that he knew he was coming to the vet, he was getting treatment, he would clench his butt, and you'd lift his tail and he'd have some of it on his butt. So every time that he came back, we put on gloves and we got baby wipes because we knew we'd have to clean him before we do anything. He just did this weekly. So sometimes if you have a very nervous dog, sometimes the way they sit, if they push on their, if you lift their tail, I've had a dog where I lifted his tail, and by lifting the tail, it tightened his muscles around his rectum, and he would squirt out some stuff. Okay, so sometimes nervous dogs increased muscle tone in that area because basically those glands, and I believe it shows you in your book, they're basically inside the muscles. If you look really close, if you look really close on a dog and you lift up the tail, sometimes you can see two little dots. Here's the opening to the anus. Here's the muscle. And then sometimes you can see two little dots, and that's where the stuff comes out of, is these two little dots. Okay, you can't always see it, but sometimes you can, and that's where they express. So the location, it says there's a small duct to the lateral margin of the anus. They can become infected. I'll tell you guys, it's a very common tech appointment to have a dog's glands expressed. And the most common question I get is, why do they have to come and express them? Well, sometimes dogs with allergies, sometimes those get irritated. The skin inside the gland gets irritated. Sometimes they overfill. If you have a dog that has soft stool, when they defecate, they don't squeeze enough to cause those to express. So sometimes dogs that have chronically soft stool and they don't have like a hard bowel movement, sometimes the gland never gets expressed. So what happens is that gland starts to fill, and then it puts pressure on the muscles, and that's why you see scooting. Sometimes you see a dog that scoots across the carpet. It can be that those glands are full and they can feel itchy or irritated. And so some dogs that are like chewing their butt or scooting excessively, sometimes they just, so we have to go in. I'm gonna have to send you a video of this because I usually play this video in class. You have to, unfortunately, lift their tail and push and squeeze them out. Yes, so Nissa just asked a question on the chat is, can this be chronic? There are dogs that will come in literally every 6 to 8 weeks to have them expressed. Sometimes it's an owner thing and I express them. Yes, sometimes smaller dogs have a higher tendency. Usually it's always part of a grooming. usually whenever they're groomed, the groomer will express the anal glands. My dog had skin allergies, and his anal glands were very deep in his muscles. Sometimes their anal gland is close to the rectum. His were very deep. And so periodically I'd have to express them because they were deeper in the near the rectum than some dogs. So sometimes it's an anatomic issue. Sometimes it's a breed issue. Dogs with allergies, especially food allergies, their anal glands tend to get inflamed. Once I gave my dog allergy food, he had barely any issues with his anal glands. So sometimes it's a symptom of a food allergy, and those anal glands get infected or irritated. Yes, they can, what Ireland's saying in the chat is they can get impacted. So I'm not going to gross everybody out, but the secretion should be more of a liquid. Sometimes when we express them, it comes out like a paste, like toothpaste. Sorry. Sometimes they get infected and abscessed and they can rupture. If you get a ruptured anal gland, you just have to clean it and let it heal on its own. You can't suture it closed because then the infection will fester. But I'm going to try to send you guys through Teacheries an email with a link to a video that can show the two ways. You can go internal with gloves and express them, or sometimes you lift their tail and you just push on the outside of the rectum and you can get them to express. Okay, so there's an internal and an external technique. If they come in to have them expressed, I usually do put on the glove and do an internal technique because that way you can feel them. I will say a side note, if you're the tech, because this is usually a tech appointment, okay? We had a dog, we went in, we tried to express it, it was firm, nothing was coming out. The dog had an anal gland tumor. So they can get tumors in these glands. Oh my God, Madison, that is completely hilarious. Yes, I'm sure one of my kids is listening to my lecture right now and thinking the same thing. The joys of what you're learning. But the dog, I was starting to push. You don't want to push to the point where you cause trauma. So I had to get the doctor and I said, I cannot get this expressed. He felt it. And then we found out there was a tumor in the anal gland, which you can do surgery for. It's kind of risky, but so there are ways to treat it. You can look this up, but understanding normally you should not have to do this often, but some dogs will have them expressed on, usually like in every 6 to 8 week. And most of the time it's the tech that's doing the appointment. Okay. Excellent tip, Ireland. I never do this. I have seen people do this without a paper towel. I had a coworker, she never, because most of the time it trapped in the glove and then she just pulled off the glove. There's a technique that you can hold the paper towel in between your fingers, and while I express, here's the paper towel. Yes. So you have to be very careful when you do this. Yes, that's an excellent tip. Ear cleaner, if you put it, okay, Ireland, I'm gonna vomit now, thank you. But yes, I got close to getting it in my face, in my mouth, but, oh. Ear cleaner, we used to keep a container of baby wipes, like regular Huggies or whatever, to wipe them off, but you can also just take a paper towel or a gauze and squirt regular ear cleanser and wipe the butt, and it does help neutralize the smell. So I know that sounds weird, you're putting ear cleaner on their butt, but it is a common thing we do in the clinic, and it seems to kind of neutralize the odor. If you just spray them with something like lavender, then they just smell like lavender anal glands. But there's some sprays that are odor neutralizing that are better, yes, waterless shampoo works as well. Usually your clinic has some types of sprays or wipes or something that you can do. I love the smell of waterless shampoo. I do like that one a lot. But we always also kept baby wipes. Their baby wipes are convenient to kind of, we just kept a container on our counter for things like this. So I will send a video because like I said, I always showed this in class and it was helpful. Okay, so hopefully that'll be coming to you later. Now, when we're talking about a specialization of the skin, the claws and dew claws are a important structure. Now, the claw, we're pertaining to the outer covering of, you have a math lecture in 5 minutes? But it's my class time. What is he doing? You know, oh shoot, you're right. Okay, you know what I'm gonna do? See, don't you guys miss me? Okay, we're actually doing pretty good on lecture. I miss you all terribly. This is a good place to stop. I'm gonna try to send you the video. That'll probably be coming later. So why don't I let everybody get off and get ready for math? I apologize, you're right. If you have any questions, email me. I'm gonna unmute you guys for a second. Are you guys all ready to bop off?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I miss you guys. Ireland, take care of yourself. If you have questions, if not, we'll meet. I will meet earlier. My class tomorrow should be shorter, so I'll try to start closer to 10 instead of the later time.
Okay.
Sounds like a plan.
Thank
Right.
you.
Sorry for the visual.
You're trying to send a visual. Okay. All right, you guys can bop off. I'm going to end the meeting. Email me if you have questions. I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Have a good day.